watching High Society with your host, David Malmo-Levine. Hello, my name is David Malmo-Levine, and welcome to another edition of High Society. And with us in studio is Michka, a world-renowned French cannabis activist and author. And Michka, what are you doing in town?
Well, actually, I happen to have... I'm Canadian also, I'm French. Most people know me as French, but I'm also Canadian. I emigrated here a long, long time ago, and I have a cabin in the woods of Grand Forks.
Right behind Mayor Brian Taylor, ex-Mayor Brian Taylor, also a cannabis activist.
Yes.
I actually lived there for a while with Brian Taylor. The most beautiful hill in the world is called Zion. Is it right by the Doukhobors sacred site, and where they... It's so gorgeous out there, with fields full of flowers and all that.
So anyway, I live in Paris now, and so I can't think of a better contrast than going up to the cabin with no power, no telephone, no nothing. So that's what I'm doing here, basically. And of course, I'm making the best of it to be a real tourist and check out the pot scene in Vancouver.
Oh, yeah. Is this your first visit to the pot scene, the green zone?
Well, last time I spent time in Vancouver was many years ago, and there was not a visible scene like this. So yes, in that sense, it is my first time.
Oh, good. And what do you think so far?
Well, it's great that it is.
Yeah. Is there anything...
I've just arrived here like 10 minutes ago, basically.
But the bring your own bud cafes, or the tolerance for people just smoking.
Yeah, just for something that has been invisible for so long to become visible, that's the miracle of something like this.
Yeah, but it does exist in Denmark or in certain places in Switzerland.
They've closed it down in Denmark.
No, Christiania.
Yes.
They shut it down?
Yes.
Kicked all the hippies out?
Yes.
2,000 people?
Yes.
It's gone now?
Yes.
It's over?
Yes.
That's terrible. That was the most beautiful place on earth.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's when you've been in the scene for a while, like I have, because my first book on the subject came out in France in 1978. That's quite a while. And though I've done other things in between, still, if you've looked at it for a long time, you see that there are fronts, and if you look at things from a world point of view, and these fronts, like the Netherlands was a great front for such a long time. They started the first coffee shops back in the 70s, and then they got so much international pressure from the US in particular, but from France also, that they've been very busy trying to keep the coffee shop, but at the same time doing things, sending messages that they were getting tougher, like you couldn't buy 30 grams anymore, but 5 grams.
They take your dignity, but they take it in inches, right? A little here, a little there, and suddenly no coffee shops.
Well, they still have the coffee shops, but it's not the same sort of free atmosphere that it used to be, and it's moved to Switzerland, as you most surely know, and it seems to Vancouver. So it's a great place to be.
Those are the two fronts for cannabis activism in the world for you, Switzerland and
I would say at the
Vancouver?
Moment they're the spearheads.
Okay, well we have some responsibility to live up to. What do you think of the cannabis here so far? Have you smoked any? Of the domestic?
Yes, I did. Just about 5 minutes ago, actually.
How's the lower mainland?
Well, I remember being in Amsterdam maybe 5 years ago. At one time with Jorge Cervantes, and I hadn't been in Vancouver for a long time, and he said, and it really struck me at the time, he said they have the best spot in the world out there, and I thought, maybe it's time I go back and have a look.
Well, we can always keep doing our quality control testing all over the world and report back as psychonauts. So tell us about some of your books and the rich history of cannabis in France.
Well, I can tell you about my books, but of course what I feel more that what I want to share with you is what I'm doing now. And right now I'm not writing a book, but what I have been doing, where my energy has been going for the last 3 years, I would say. Well, we opened this smoking museum in Paris, a friend and I, le Musee de Fumeur.
Nice.
And it's a true museum, and it's done with it's very carefully done. most people that come in find it very beautiful, is the word that comes out the most. And the concept it's a broad concept. It's a relationship of mankind with smoke, plants that are smoked.
Nice.
So tobacco, of course, is our number one subject, and pot comes only second, because for the number of people who smoke, and also from a historical point of view, tobacco was smoked, I believe, before cannabis was. Wow. I know people argue on that, but I really think
it's a heated debate.
Yeah, anyway, we can have a debate. Anyway, that's how I feel about it. Mm-hmm. And also I feel that given this anti-tobacco crusade mm-hmm. that goes on in North America in particular, but then it follows in Europe, it really seems to me that it's a good time to, what I really want to say is smokers unite.
Mm-hmm. And come out of the closet like the gay people did, I guess. Do people smoke in
but
your
museum? Smokers,
museum?
Including tobacco smokers. Oh, yeah. All smokers. But then, of course, of course, then it's interesting to look at tobacco. And of course, everybody knows what cigarettes basically are a shitty product. Most people that smoke cigarettes, as we know, have a relationship of frustration with cigarettes. But most people that smoke cigars, true cigars, the leaf, hand-rolled, have a relationship of pleasure with tobacco. And so it's really important when thinking about tobacco to see that cigarettes are one thing, and then there are other forms of tobacco.
I always thought the most important point to stress when differentiating tobacco smoke and cannabis smoke is that tobacco is one of the most toxic herbs. A little bit, eating half a cigar could kill most people, and that it's further compounded with tons and tons of radioactive chemical fertilizer on these tobacco crops year after year.
That's the industrial treatment of tobacco, which is something else.
If it's grown organically...
But if you look at psychotropic plants, mm-hmm. you see that cannabis is really the exception, because it is not toxic, mm-hmm. but mm-hmm. it really is the exception. Anything else that does something to you is also very toxic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
what a wonderful exception, though. Hey? Here you can give it to your teenagers and say, learn on that one when you've mastered cannabis, when you can handle dose titration and understanding the non-toxic herb, then you can move on to the slightly more toxic herbs like cocoa beans and coffee and tea and maybe, other those stronger substances.
It's very interesting. It's funny, I find myself talking more about tobacco than pot these days, mm-hmm. but then I've spoke about pot for 20 years. Yeah. But it's very interesting if you look at tobacco to see that whether it's ayahuasca, whether it's peyote or whatever it is, yeah. it's almost always a case of this and tobacco. I mean, in the traditional way of doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
they mix.
It's almost as if you want to rekindle, not to, when you have not ashes but the red stuff, embers. No? Embers. And you want to blow on them and give them strength again. Well, that's what tobacco seems to do to peyote or ayahuasca. It makes it come on stronger again. There seems to be a connection there. I'm more and more interested in the psychotropic aspect of tobacco, and really I feel I'd be very curious to go and try it out where they still use it traditionally as a shamanic.
Yeah, exactly. Like we treat tobacco very much like we treat cannabis. There's one crop grown, Virginia, like indica seems to be the commercial variety, and then people just grow the heck out of that and ignore a lot of the other strains. I heard that tobacco came in dark leaf varieties that were higher in nicotine and acted more as a relaxant or a hallucinogen, and that's why they called it the peace pipe, because you'd smoke a couple puffs and then no one could take a swing at anyone else because they were totally relaxed. Back to your museum, how do people, when they're in Paris, how do they find it, and are people allowed to smoke cannabis there?
So, no, they're not allowed to smoke cannabis because it's France.
Yeah.
And there are not too many places where you can smoke pot openly.
Yeah.
And how to find it? Well, that's easy, because you go on the site and there is a little map. And the site, if you want to have it in French, it's Le Musée de Fumeur, as one word, or smokingmuseum.net, and have a look at the site. It looks rather nice.
Yes, well, we'll definitely have
and
that.
And then you have the map.
Oh, great.
The map of how to get there.
Yes, we'll have that in the information box below and include it on the interview show page.
Yes.
Yes, and how do people contact you? Is there, I guess, through the website way to contact?
Michka at le Musee de Fumeur.net or smokingmuseum.net.
Well,